All right. Well, listen, hello, everybody. Glad to have you here again. We have a very interesting uh, webinar today. First, I want to say a little bit about, I always talk about our mission, but I think there's some new people on the call who don't know our mission. And the mission of US Inventor is very simple. We simply want to restore to inventors the rights that they had in America uh, from the very beginning of this country, rights that enabled America to become a world power way sooner than it ever would have, rights that enabled America to lead the world in innovation and stay ahead of our adversaries, and rights that fueled the American dream and all of that. And of course, for any of you who are new to this issue, the influence of big tech on our lawmakers has led to changes that have made it virtually impossible for an inventor to protect or to stop a large entity from stealing what you have invented and patented. And it's horrendous. It's anti-American. It's un-American. It's terrible for this country and for our future, and certainly for individuals who have great abilities, who could invent great things that are very valuable for mankind. And when I say we want to restore the rights of inventors, I'm talking about all inventors, absolutely including the little guys and girls who have the least resources. They should have access to actual effective patent rights and be able to stop infringers and do whatever they want, start the next great American startup, etc. And that's what we're fighting for. Now, a couple of disclaimers here. Well, one main disclaimer. Anything you hear on this call is not legal advice. If you hear something that sounds like legal advice, get with your attorney. But whatever you hear on our calls is not to be considered legal advice. For any comments you have, we're gonna have a discussion here, but then toward the end, we're going to take questions from the audience to the degree we can. I'm not sure how much time we'll have, and Joe might be kind of constrained by what he can say about certain things because of litigation that he's in. But you want to put your questions, you can put comments in the chat, but put questions in the Q&A, okay, at the bottom of your screen. So we have an amazing speaker today, a guest today, Joe Kiani. So Joe is the founder and chairman of Masimo. You know, Joe started like us. He was an inventor in a garage who had, he'll tell us more about it shortly, but he started like any of us, but he worked and was very successful and kept inventing and was extremely productive. And presently, he runs a public company with over 10,000 employees. It's pretty phenomenal. In fact, his medical inventions that are life-saving inventions are in hospitals everywhere. And I believe I saw that they have 600 patents and there are 200 million patients being monitored by his products. Uh, Phenomenal. And of course, you know that he's engaged in a big battle with Apple over a particular infringement issue. But anyway, point is, Joe is exactly doing what we all wish are trying to do ourselves. So Joe, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And maybe I want to start off with tell us what led up to your first invention and how Massimo began.
Thank you, Randy. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. I just feel so good. I feel a warm hug from everybody. Thanks for having me. I want to first, before I answer your question, say something you were talking about. American innovation, American inventions have helped the entire world. And it's a good thing, at least one, if not many of our founding fathers were inventors. And patents were our rights constitutionally. And those rights are being taken away from us. And yeah, I would not be comfortable in saying I could have done the same thing had I not started in 1989 when I did, because of how through the court systems like the KSR case and American Invents Act, patents are no longer given the same value, the same teeth. So look, we invented electricity, the cotton gin. I mean, my God, the telephone, the telegram, power, automation of cars. I mean, the world relies on America staying innovative, and we've improved the human condition as a result. So I have from day one viewed this issue as a long-term view, that for the sake of our country, forget our individual companies and inventions, we need to have strong intellectual property laws. And I feel terrible that they rewrote it. Henry DeSoto, a famous economist, did a research that showed countries that progressed all had strong property rights. Without strong property rights, you don't develop your property. So if we don't believe in our patents, why would we invest money and blood, sweat, and tears behind our invention? So yes, I think going back to your question, look, I started Masimo, like you said, in my garage in '89. I had just finished my master's in '87 in electrical engineering. I did my emphasis on signal processing, advanced filters like AI, adaptive filters, and I thought I could use these technologies to solve what was the biggest problem with pulse oximetry, which is false alarms when people move or they have low blood flow. People thought that was just inherent limitation of the technology. And fortunately, we were too naive to believe that. And we started Masimo. The first idea didn't work because we found out the hard way that the body is not rhythmic. We were thinking we could lock into the heart rate, the heart rhythm, and from then on know what the ideal signal looks like and get rid of the noise. But that is not the case. In fact, if your heart becomes rhythmic, you go into fibrillation. So we, by nature, do better with chaos. We're chaotic. But fortunately, we came up with a mathematical way of solving the problem, figuring out the noise that's unknown. You don't know what frequency it's in. It could be one moment at 1 hertz, one moment at 4 hertz, all within the same window of where the physiology is. And that invention really changed everything. Before then, pulse oximetry was considered a fair weather friend. 70 to 90% of the alarms were false. We made it into a foul weather friend where less than 5% of the alarms were false. And we actually improved the detection of true alarms. And for the first time, outcome studies on pulse oximetry were positive. Before then, no one could show any benefit for pulse oximetry. But after our technology, blindness in the neonatal ICU was virtually eliminated. People dying of opioid overdose in post-surgical wards were eliminated. So I'm very proud of what we've done. I'm not just proud of the clinical results we've gotten, but I'm very proud of the science we created that other people can build upon. That's one of the trades with patents. You disclose how your ideas work, and once the patents expire, people can use it. In this world of encryption and most things being an algorithm, if we don't make good, strong patent laws, people will hide their technology and people can't build on top of each other. So I got to tell you, when I started, I was 24 years old. I had no experience other than being an engineer. And the only way I raised venture capital money, I'm not exaggerating, was when people reviewed my first patent application with my co-inventor, Mohammed Diab. When they reviewed that patent application, the VCs hired lawyers to ask them the question, how strong do you think this patent will be? Based on them saying, this is really novel, this should be really strong, I raised venture capital money. Because with my own $40,000 loan on my condo, I wasn't going to go anywhere. I had to raise $100 million. So that's how good the patent laws used to be. I think today I wouldn't get the blessing from the lawyers. They'll say, yes, maybe a good patent, but we don't know. Apple could file an IPR and kill it. So I think that's the problem that we're facing today.
Yeah, two things jump out at me from what you just said. One is that a lot of inventors succeed by not listening to the quote experts, right? The experts teach you what is known, but what inventors do is determine what's not known that works. Of course, anyway, I really appreciate what you've done. So was pulse oximetry your first invention?
It was our first invention. Now, from the moment we invented it till the moment we launched the product took several years. We had to really build the road to drive our new engine on. So it was a lot of challenges, but yeah, it was our first invention, and from then on we were able to grow.
Gotcha. So were there any particular challenges you had to overcome? Obviously, you were able to raise the money. A lot of people find that to be the biggest challenge today. Any other challenges you ran into in your process?
Yeah, yeah. Anyone who's ever been an entrepreneur, there
Mm.
are some people that root for you, which is great, but your competitors definitely don't want you around. We were facing a monopoly, not very much different than today, in the hospital system. There was a company called Nelcor, and they had 90% market share. They had signed up agreements with all the major patient monitoring companies to not integrate anybody else's technology. They had also, seeing that we're coming, went ahead and signed up exclusive deals with group purchasing organizations who are the middlemen between suppliers and hospitals. And instead of negotiating for the lowest price products that perform the best, they were negotiating for who would make him more money, because these GPOs were being paid by the suppliers a percentage of their revenues. So unfortunately, barricades were lifted. We were fortunate that we overcame those. Thank God the media worked, the courts worked, and legislation body worked. We actually, the guy who broke the nicotine story, Walt Bogdanich, he heard about what's going on with us. Here we had a technology that was proven to reduce blindness in the neonatal ICU, yet we couldn't sell it in the US. So he asked me if I'd speak up against a system where the GPOs were blocking us with Nelcor, and I agreed. They did a 2-year investigative report. The day that article came out, we were the poster child of that problem in New York Times, the front page. I got a call from the Senate Judiciary Committee asking me if I testify. It was my first time going to DC. So a month later, I was in DC testifying. And then, as I say, the rest is history. We were allowed to get in. It changed the industry for a lot of people, although it never got codified as law that these GPOs can't take money from suppliers.
Mm, interesting. So I understand that you're now bringing your technology to consumers directly. What caused you to make this decision?
Well, literally, not long after I started Masimo, in fact, I was going through my old lab notebooks. I had two ideas I wanted to bring out. One was a baby monitor, which we call Stork. It finally came out. We just got FDA clearance for it. The other was a wrist-worn pulse oximeter, hopefully with blood pressure in it. So that's been a goal from the beginning. But our solution to solve the motion artifact problem required very advanced signal processing. We had to use 64-bit floating point processors that at that time consumed 4,500 milliwatts and was the size of a floppy disk, for those who remember floppy disks. But over time, we shrunk it to become the size of my digit, and we reduced the power to 20 milliwatts. That made it possible to put the same powerful technology into a battery-operated wearable.
Interesting. So are you working on anything now that you can share with us, or perhaps it has to remain top secret?
No, I'll tell you some of it. First of all, I'm really excited. While we began with SET pulse oximetry, which, like you said, we monitor over 200 million people a year in the top 9 out of 10 hospitals in the country, as US News reports. But we advanced the technology. We create something we call Rainbow, which instead of just 2 rays of light, it uses up to 12 rays of light. So now we can measure 12 parameters non-invasive, not just oxygen, but we can measure carbon monoxide. If you have CO poisoning, we can measure total hemoglobin. If you have anemia or you need to, in blood transfusion reduction. So we've advanced the technology dramatically. We also have something we call hospital automation. I don't know if you can see behind me, but we have this connectivity platform that connects everything in a hospital together in each room. Not only can we set it to the electronic medical record, but we use AI to predict where the patient's going using all the data we can gather from the EMR and the devices that are connected to the patient. That should be a game changer. We also now are going into the home with consumer health, with wearables like W1, which we have FDA clearance for, and we're soon going to launch Freedom, which is a full-blown smartwatch, and this is the baby monitor stork I mentioned. But we got other cool stuff in R&D. One of the things I'm hoping for, we can use light as a way to measure cancer cells so that during surgery, surgeons will know how much cancer is left. Because there's certain surgeries that are very sensitive. Like imagine the head, the face. You can't take more than you need to take out. But if you leave anything behind, it metastasizes and it gets a lot worse. So we think we don't have it yet, but we think we have feasibility how we can detect one cell at a time in the body and know when the surgery can stop.
Wow. I mean, that is so important. You know, it's interesting. You're talking about getting investment for ventures like what you're describing. And, you know, one of the problems in the current environment is that venture capital is looking a lot of times now at short-term, quick turnaround things as opposed to long-term important things because the quick turnaround is less risky than the long-term that depends on patent protection, you know? It's a real problem we have.
It's a big problem because you all know nothing really worthwhile happens quickly. Really big changes are done with people that take a 10-year long look at inventing, creating, and pushing it out. So yeah, you need patient money. And by the way, it's not just in the VCs. We have that problem, unfortunately, in the public markets where a lot of people are very short term, quarter to quarter, and they don't let public companies properly invest, which is bad for the companies and bad for our future.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about the ITC and the importance of the ITC?
Well, first of all, we got the good news today. I don't know if you heard, but the ban has gone in place 2 p.m. tomorrow. The stay has been lifted by Federal Court of Appeals. So I'm really, really happy to be with you today with that news. But yeah, unfortunately, the patent system has been really watered down. And in the normal courts, injunctions are no longer guaranteed. Before American Invents Act, or KSR, excuse me, there were only 2 cases in US history where an injunction wasn't granted post a patent victory. Now, as you know, injunctions are hardly ever granted. And then really the only court that's left that issues injunctions is the International Trade Commission. And that requires 2 things. It requires that your competitor is making the stuff in a foreign country, and it requires that you make your patented invention in the US. So assuming both is going on, you can use the ITC to stop an infringer like we did. And while the process took about a year longer than we expected, excuse me, have some water. Fortunately, the outcome was great. We not only the ALJ ruled in our favor last January, but the full commission ruled in our favor. Apple tried to stay that injunction with the ITC. It was denied twice. They tried to get the Biden administration to intervene. They didn't. Then they sought an emergency order pause to get a permanent pause during the appeals with the federal court. Unfortunately, the temporary pause was granted, but just today, the long-term pause was denied.
Well, this is fabulous news, and for anybody, I think a lot of the people on the call have probably been following your case. But great news that the injunction is going to hold. Of course, they probably are going to appeal, right? Is that still in the works, or is it over?
Well, the injunction is going to go in place 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
So Apple has to take pulse oximetry out of their watches.
This is excellent. Were you surprised that they did that temporary stay on the injunction?
I was. Boy, when I got the news, I think the day after Christmas, it was like someone stabbed me. But I learned later that those temporary pauses have been granted like 9 out of 10 times. It's really a rubber stamp motion. So I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was.
I got you. So why is it so important for you to stand up for what's right so that you can protect future inventors from going through the same challenges you've had with corporate giants?
Well, I think it's twofold. One of them is protecting the integrity of intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
If we win this thing, like we have, hopefully Apple will stop treating companies like they treated us. I mean, here, I don't know if you heard the story, but we This is their own information that I saw myself in an open public court. In 2012, Apple decides to make the watch. They decide that the most important feature of the watch is pulse oximetry. They quickly realize they don't know how to do it. They begin a project called Rover to find out who in the world knows pulse oximetry. They came up with a list of about 50 companies, but they wrote in the memo there are two standout companies, Masimo and Cercacor, both run by the same guy, Joe Kiani. And then they start saying how Joe is the Steve Jobs of the healthcare industry. It'd be worth buying Masimo just to get Joe because he's not hireable. And yet we get all this technology and the cash flow and stuff as well. They go to Tim Cook and say, we should buy Masimo. Tim Cook says, no, we don't do acquisitions this size. So then they create a project called Everest. Everest, the highest mountain, was to either license our technology, do joint development, or have us consult for them. The fourth item, acquire Masimo people. So as they're doing this with us, our CTO of the sister company, Cercacor, sends Tim Cook an email 1 a.m. after I rejected a request he had of me to say, and I didn't know this at the time, I learned after the fact, that, look, I know you're trying to do pulse oximetry. The last 20% is the hardest. I know how to do it. I've been here for 10 years. I can bring it to you if you give me a high-level technical executive role. I mean, it reminds me of Matrix. Remember when, I don't know those who watch Matrix. But anyway, yeah. So you remember, put me back in the Matrix, make me a Hollywood A-lister, and I'll tell you where these guys are. So what happens instead of Tim Cook saying, hey, make sure nobody hires this guy? They respond to him 10 in. And when they hired him, Steve Hotelling, who manages about 5,000 engineers at Apple, says, well, now that we got Marcelo, we pretty much got everything we need. Let's go to hiring the rest of Masimo. In fact, let's go one level lower. Let's hire their directors. Let's hire their engineers. And they did a research for 3 months to know who to hire. And they went after everybody. Unfortunately, I lost over 20 of my people, but fortunately, most of my people stayed, especially the critical people. But I got to tell you, this is not an accidental infringement. They purposely did this. And then I learned we're not the only ones. They do this to everybody. If they want something, like right now, they want to make the chip that Qualcomm makes. They just announced they're putting up a plant next to Qualcomm to hire 1,200 engineers. So anyway, so you asked the question. I hope by winning, it changes how Apple does things. I also have to tell you specifically, which is really weird in this case, Apple, even though they took my people, they took our property, they took our patents, their product is horrible. They knew it too. In their own documents, it showed that they knew they get only 2 measurements a day, 2 measurements a day on 37% of the people only, and it wasn't good enough to get FDA clearance. Yet they wrote, in the chaos of COVID, if we launch this, we'll get market share from Fitbit. So this is a situation where actually it's better for people not to have this pulse ox on their watch because it's a false aid. It doesn't work.
It's so disheartening, because a lot of people out there think Apple's this great innovative company, and what they've turned into is pretty awful. It's a tough thing to even watch, to consider. So I have a question. I know in an interview I saw you do, you were, it appeared, if I'm not mistaken, even after Apple had done so many terrible things, you actually approached them and said, hey, look, guys, you can license this. You tried to work with them, and apparently it kind of fell flat. It's just shocking that they would not even consider it. Is that what happened?
Yeah, because while in the background, I didn't know what was going on. They called me in 2013 saying, you guys are the platinum of non-invasive monitoring. We'd love to meet you. Come to Cupertino. We'll sign your NDA. Tell us everything. They had a 4-hour agenda. And I went there. And I thought we had a great meeting. And we did. Because that team, that management team, which was Adrian Perica, Bob Mansfield, after my meeting, they went to Tim Cook and said we should buy Masimo. What I didn't know is what happened afterward, which I learned in the courts. And despite them being the way they are, I've even put the olive branches out there that we're still willing to work with them. Now, do I want to work with them? No. But do I think, given that they have our trade secrets, it's kind of a weird situation. I can never get it out of there. So, what do we do? how do we do this?
Yeah.
I mean, and they have a huge footprint. You know, no matter what we do, they have a following that's pretty large, and it may be better for everybody if we could help them improve their product and work with them. But I got to tell you, one of the things I'm looking for before doing that is that they agree to stop treating other companies like this.
Wow, that would be something. You know, and of course, by getting, you know, our big effort is to get the laws changed so that the large entities have to act more ethically because it's more dangerous because the law is better, stronger for the patent holder. You know, that's the ultimate decision, right? But hopefully, you know, we're making progress toward that and working very hard on it. One of our viewers here today is asking. She saw on somewhere that Masimo had never licensed an invention. I guess that would indicate that you just produce your own products and don't license to others. Is that true?
That is correct. Uh, we are not a patent licensing company. We make products. In fact, we have a huge patent portfolio, and I even had people come to me and present to me a plan how we could license our patents. I said, "Wow, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
open to that." But then I said, well, "How are you going to do it?" They said, "Oh, we have to send threat letters to people, and then if they don't do it, then we're gonna have to sue them." I said, "No, no, no, no. I don't want to be threatening people. I want to make my own products. The only people I'm gonna sue are people that infringe patents that are in our products." So yeah, my lawyer wants me to be specific. Obviously, when we sell our technology boards, we don't just sell it, we license the patents that are used in that technology board. But no, we don't license our patents.
Well, of course. And so then you are an American company producing products, which is what America needs more of, right? This is
Yeah,
like the,
thank
the the
you.
key. Yeah, I mean, this is what we all want: more American companies producing American products. It's really wonderful. Um,
Currently, we're one of the, from a volume perspective, we're one
mhm.
of the highest volume chip makers in this country. We have our facility in New Hampshire where we manufacture hundreds of millions of LEDs and detectors a year. So we go down to the foundry and we build our own products. So, it's funny when Apple was trying to stop the injunction, they kept mentioning we have 90,000 employees, but they never said how many of them work in the US. I mean, their entire manufacturing is out of China, and now some moving to Vietnam, but it's not in the US.
Yeah, well, you know, that's unfortunately a lot of these big companies, they have such a they're so short-sighted, and everything's being done elsewhere, which is a real problem for the future, as you know. Um,
Yeah, with AI,
so
the labor jobs might be the only jobs left.
yeah, yeah. So are you obviously you're totally aware of the PTAB, the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, and all the problems with the PTAB because I know you've faced it. Um, are you comfortable that if we were able to get rid of the PTAB or make it optional, that an Article 3 court, a real court with a real judge, with a real jury, with a lot of due process, that would be the fairest alternative for inventors as
Well,
far as
look,
litigation?
first of all, before PTAB, we never had a single one of our patents invalidated. Um, and then we go to PTAB and we get 80% of our patents invalidated. And I learned that
Jeez.
Apple is the number one customer of PTAB. And by the way, some of the judges that are there used to work for law firms for Apple. And one of them even got hired to be in-house at Apple after several years of successfully killing patents for them. So this is a really messed up situation. Plus, they're to invalidate a patent in a court, it's clear and convincing evidence. But for PTAB, it's preponderance of evidence. And that's the reason I understand why the Federal Court of Appeals usually just goes along with whatever PTAB does, because it's hard for them to argue a preponderance of evidence evidentiary. So to answer your question, yeah, do I wish PTAB wasn't there? Yes. Do I think that is likely? No. What I wish would happen is at minimum, there's some laws being thrown around that might go into effect where you change the standard to clear and convincing evidence. So maybe then PTAB's rulings will be more like the lower courts or the federal court rulings, where most of the time they don't invalidate patents.
I hear you. So one of our attendees is asking a kind of a broad question here. How can a small inventor compete in today's environment?
Oh my God. Uh, I guess you have to have a lot of good luck. Um, because inventing fundamental technologies and expecting your patents to protect you is no longer the probability. It is hard. It is really hard. Even for us to get as far as we have, we spent $100 million. I mean,
Oh,
what startup has that kind of money? And I was an investor in a small startup company that makes one of the first people, inventor from MIT, with augmented reality glasses. And they had some incredible fundamental patents. But as they were trying to raise money, the investors were worried. Well, what if one of the major companies goes to PTAB and does IPR on all your patents? It's going to cost you millions of dollars just to defend yourself. So literally, that became the reason they had to abandon that project. I mean, think about that. It's the patents actually hurt them. Instead of patents helping them, like it helped me raise money, the patents that they had was hurting them in raising money because it was going to be potentially a liability.
yeah, oh, I hear you. Let me ask you this: Does Apple, one of our viewers, does Apple need to take this feature from all existing watches that use the technology, or does the ruling only apply to new products only, like new watches?
New watches only. No one has to give up the broken SPO2 that they have right now. They can keep it.
I got you. I got you. Um, Here's another question from one of our viewers. Do you think you'll be able to get treble damages?
Nope, that's only an antitrust. And by the way, these days to show willful infringement is extremely hard. We had a case where one of the engineers admitted, this is with Philips, that Philips was going to infringe our patents one layer at a time. I think they call it the sausage technique. They're from Germany. And even with that kind of evidence, we were told we probably won't get a willful infringement showing. So it's really hard to get willful infringement. So really the only places you get a treble damage automatically is with an antitrust um, win.
Gotcha. So I'm looking through the questions to see if there's anything that I should ask you here. Um, so as far as Massimo, by the way, one thing that I was curious about, where does the name Massimo come from?
My first name is Massi. My
Ah,
middle name is Joe, Joseph. And my partner's name is Mo, Muhammad. So Massimo, that's where it came from.
I got you. By the way, one of our writers, and I just want to throw this out there regarding the clear and convincing, because I know that there is the viewpoint that perhaps changing to clear and convincing at the PTAB could have a big effect, but there's also a lot of attorneys who litigate who say that since the primary reason for invalidation is very subjective obviousness, that it may not have nearly the effect that some claim, some think, but which is why for the little guy, we're hoping to we don't we'd rather have our day in a real court. So
Yeah, well, they may be right. I don't know. I mean, look, I testified on this. One of our patents that was killed by PTAB, Apple brought in 4 or 5 or 6 patents. They stitched them together and they still didn't describe what was inventive about our claim. Apple's expert said, I would have done it that way. And literally, one of the judges who's infamous for killing patents said, well, he would have done it that way. Okay, then the patent's invalid. I mean, it is ridiculous. So I get that. But I got to tell you, it's still because of preponderance of evidence she can make such a crazy ruling. I think she would have been overruled by the Federal Court of Appeals had clear and convincing evidence been there. But I'll put it at you. Look, I, for 25 years almost, tried to change the GPO system, not even kill it. Change it from who pays the GPOs. Instead of being paid by suppliers, be paid by the hospitals who they're representing. This way, I mean, could you imagine your purchasing agents being paid a percentage of the revenues that you buy things from. I mean, from the suppliers. I mean, that's what it is today. I couldn't get that done. Once these monies start coming in, once corruption seeps in, you can't change it. So what I'm afraid of as we go for trying to get rid of PTAB, instead of going with the flow of clear and convincing evidence for now, we'll get nowhere. And then we'll end up with the same thing we have for many more years. Now, if we go for clear and convincing evidence and it works, great. If it doesn't work, then we can say it didn't work. We need to get rid of the system. We need to have Article 3 judges.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and that's where we definitely agree. Article 3 judges who have lifetime appointments, who unlike that one judge you mentioned who went back to work for Apple, aren't looking for a better job. That is the key. Justice where it is totally separated from politics, and and you know what? It's not cheap, but you as an inventor, when the system's fair, you can do it on contingency, and that's how the little guy has gotten to court many years in the past. Let me ask you this: is there anything else that you would like to tell our people? What we are primarily inventors. We're the little guys. We're trying to make it. Some here are in litigation now. Some are expecting it. Some are holding back because they're worried that if they try to stop an infringer, they'll lose their patents. What do you think? Any advice for these people?
Well, first of all, you know better than me, everything good that's ever happened in this world is because of collective work of people. So I think you guys being united, you guys working together, you can change the system. And I'm happy to be part of your group helping you. But I have to say, I think practically right now, if you have an idea that you can encrypt, because you can go in software, I wouldn't file a patent on it. And I certainly won't let the patent issue until I'm happy with my claims, let alone the battle you're going to go through. So the patents certainly have been hurt. And if you can keep things a trade secret, if you can hide what you're doing, do that. Now, some products, as soon as you release it, it's easy to reverse engineer, like Molly's jump rope. You have no choice. You got to file your patents, and you got to just hope that the patents will withstand. And maybe, I know it's expensive because the ITC courts are super fast, and it's almost like $1 million a month to be in an ITC court. And yet we also didn't have a guarantee that while we were in that court, PTAB wouldn't kill these patents. Fortunately, PTAB did not kill the patents that the ITC found Apple had infringed, and we got our justice. But it's hard. It's hard, and I'm sorry I don't have happy news to tell you, but just hang in there.
Well, we're glad to have you as an ally, and we definitely appreciate greatly what you do and what you've done. And we're fighting to restore the system to where the little guy can win, and that's really important because over the years, many, the vast majority of the great game-changing inventions have come from little guys and girls. So it's a key part of America that we have to restore. We really appreciate your talking to us. I think we'd love to talk with you more. But before we move on, let me just see if I have any other question that stands out. We want to present something to you. Now, I know you saw that we had a nice piece of art that one of our members, who's an artist, produced that was quite interesting. And the artist is here. Is Michael Kentner. Michael, why don't you present this to Joe?
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Michael.
It was very inspiring to come up with this. And what I like to do is I'm going to show this art piece real quick so that the viewers can see this. And it really resembles your experience in the sense that the Borg, in this case, Apple, they're a fierce adversary, and you're not going to stand down and let them assimilate you. And it's that effort that really becomes memorable in helping to tell the story. And what I like to do now is in the in the spirit of, you know, creating and doing what I'm doing for you and for everybody, is to help tell their story through pictures are worth 1,000 words. So what I want to say, it's with great honor on behalf of myself and US Inventor, that I dedicate this to you. So I'll be sure to get this to you and hope that, you know, truly that you live long and prosper in your innovative ways and endeavors and never relent the fight. I'll try to do that. But
Come on,
I,
you can.
a little
I
harder
can't
for
do that.
me.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
But I truly, you know, admire what you're doing, you know, and it's amazing that what you're doing is to help us. Because I went through similar things, but I was wiped out. You know, I was truly assimilated by the powers to be. And because of that, I want to tell my story, you know, through these photos. So I hope this helps you in your relent with your fight. Thank you.
Michael, this means so much to me. I love the detail in your art. I love how you have China being behind the board. You know, Apple had 3 years to get around the ITC if they just made the stuff in the US. They didn't even attempt that. I think Apple's a Chinese company more than an American company. And you hit that right there. And then you've got us, you got our flag, you got my logo. Thank you. And then Captain Kirk. Come on. Who doesn't want to be Captain Kirk? Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael. I can't wait to put this in my office or my home. Somewhere.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Mike.
much. Thank
Hey,
you.
one last question that I just saw that I probably should have asked before Michael did the presentation. Considering the cost of PTAB trials, do you think if you hadn't been the size company that you are, you've been able to fund all of those PTAB trials you went through?
No, no, it cost us, I think, around 12 or $13 million to defend ourselves on PTAB. Apple
Yeah.
filed 33 IPRs. They, on average, cost about $500,000 each. Now, we were part of the group that was trying to give advice to legislators when American Invents Act was being propped up, and we did everything we could to stop it. I just want you to know that. And one of the things we told them, we said, this PTAB IPR idea is a terrible idea, because we said to them, look, patent office already, you can do ex parte or inter parte reexamination. The difference is with that reexamination, you can amend your claims to save your patent. Maybe it won't be as broad as you used to have, but you could do that. This kills it. Plus, we told them this is going to cost at least $100,000 a case. They said, no, it's going to be $10,000. We said, really? Now it's turning out to be $500,000 plus per case. So no, I'm really sorry to see great people like Molly and Michael and so many to be destroyed by the system. I just can't wait till legislators fix it. You were there at that conference. One of the co-authors of the law said they didn't see this coming. They never thought it's going to hurt small inventors the way it has. So maybe they'll turn back and fix it. I sure hope they will.
Well, that's certainly what we're working very hard for, and we look forward to working with you on that subject. And thank you for your interest and for the fact that you care about this as much as you do. Thank you so much. So everybody, we've come to the end of this webinar, and I want to thank you, Joe, not just for being here, but for being one of us. You know, you're one of us. You're still inventing, right? And it's phenomenal. You're a great example. And I want to thank everybody here who cares about this cause. If we don't restore the rights of inventors in America, our future will be very different than our past. Will the great American startup become just a footnote in history, right? Will we have great American startups anymore? You know, will a handful of corporations control everything? Will our adversaries take the lead in all future technologies? What about the American dream? You know, the future of America really depends on our victory. And if you haven't already signed our inventor rights resolution, please do so usinventor.org. Join us and help us get the job done. This is so important. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.